The Great Cleric has a phenomenal training arc, but it'll never be popular. And here's why. Here we are, another year, another season, and voila, we're presenting with yet another isekai adaptation that seems to have the most generic cast and lacks the thrilling plot. The star of the show, Luciel, wants to become strong to avoid death. And what does it do? He decides to become the holiest cleric in the time of corrupt healer. Wait, that sounds a bit too familiar. Is this show calling out Big Pharma? Okay, so if you're looking for a cure to your generic isekai overdose, you found it. It's merely the beginning. Okay, so we'll talk about all the reasons why the Great Cleric is more likely to make you actually snore during a Crunchyroll and chill session. Yes, we say that now. Starting with its lack of thrilling plot elements found in other popular isekais. So we have the protagonist who gets transported into a new world, gets handed out a status screen like a grocery list, and gets to pick his overpowered skills. I have never seen that before. Even people on Halloween don't get handed out candies that easily. So of course he promptly joins the local guild, who wouldn't, and start battling beasts like it's a weekly chore. Then he tried to spice things up with healing magic. So sure, it's intriguing and it's been done before, especially considering that there's more corruption in the Healers Guild than in a Shakespearean tragedy. So there aren't many animes that focus on healers, notably the Parallel World Pharmacy, which was actually nice. It follows a similar plot, just like the Great Cleric, where the MC is a healer. So both animes' main characters aim to save as many people as possible. However, they're still very different in the sense that the Great Cleric is more on the cheerful side. Alternatively, Parallel World Pharmacy is also cheerful, but it puts more emphasis on how much people are suffering, something the Great Cleric kind of passes over to get back to adventure and comedy, or more like training. But here, there's more to Luciel that his basic character and personality that really is not bland. It's just here, so hear me out. Luciel is the main character, but it doesn't show much character growth. Well, at least not physical growth, because actually he's been drinking that substance X, which, on a side note, has immensely lowered his PP drive as a side effect. So basically, bro is going to die a virgin. But the main problem with Luciel is that he goes into panic mode as soon as someone makes eye contact with him. And that gets a little old. Like in the first episode, he comes across the people from the Adventurers Guild, so he's basically a healer with spaghetti nerves. However, his resilience compensates for his one-dimensional character, as it remains a consistent and defining trait throughout the story. Like when he stayed in the labyrinth for 6 months just to purge it out of the zombies. So I mean, that's some serious dedication. Most of us can't even commit to a diet for 6 days, let alone 6 months. On the other hand, we have a character like Subaru from ReZero. Just like Luciel, he starts as a weak character and takes enough time, which was actually kind of frustrating. However, he does change for the better, transforming from a shut-in to a person who would do anything to save the people he loves. That becomes his strength. He was an insecure person because he feared being abandoned. But when he gets isekai'd and meet new people who accept him for who he is, that's where he starts learning how to build genuine and healthy relationships. But the one-dimensional character is not the only thing that's forgettable in this anime. The Great Cleric also lacks gripping plot. No real big twist, which makes it even more frustrating, that makes you even want to punch hole into your screens. It's so reminiscent of countless run-of-the-mill stories that it's bound to fade into oblivion. The first half of the show is just dedicated to his training to improve his strength and learn spells, because what else could you have done for a show that offers no intricate plot? However, it's worth noting that the anime is very inoffensive, and there's literally no involvement of slavery, which is the basis for every other isekai. Like, we get it, you guys like slavery. And most people actually watching the isekai more or less go with it. Anyways, now let's draw a comparison to the Rising of the Shield Hero, which embodies many of the issues one might associate with isekais. A significant problem is its poor pacing. Everything happens so fast, leaving no room for character growth. Also, the focus remains primarily on the MC and his group, leaving others in the background. Absolute spotlight hogging. But there's a twist. It's a cleverly disguised lolly harem. Nothing says quality storytelling like a group of girls swooning over the MC. So despite their difference, they sure share a love of lackluster pacing. It's basically a love story better than Twilight. At this point, I'm just gonna say this anime is great. It's so great that I'm going to keep arguing with the wall, because even its animation is as rigid as a wall. Now, even if all that talking didn't convince you not to watch the show, which, you know, you do what you do, I have another thing. Yes, the great animation. And I'm not being sarcastic. It feels so rigid that a cardboard cutout of a potato would look better than this. I can't help but wonder if they paid the animators in peanuts, then cross their fingers for a miracle to happen. There are also a lot of cheesy effects and shortcuts. It makes you kind of wonder if it was just a kid's project or if a proper anime studio animated it. Hear me out, compare this to Sword Art Online. Like, that is some animation magic right there. It feels like you're actually slicing and dicing into that virtual world. It was so immersive that you can't help but wish you were actually there. The whole, you die if you actually die in the show, unless you have a thing for that. So with shows like SAO with great animation, you definitely don't want to suffer through the Great Cleric. I mean, it is okay. It's just compared to the ones that came before it. It's a tough sell. But other than that, if you're looking to find a way to sleep at night, you can always listen to Luciel's monologue, because we have something about that too. One of the things that's crazy about isekais, or anime in general actually, is this boring kind of internal narration. Like, the character just stands there and talks to himself. Like, are there people just watching the whole time? It would kind of make you go like, dude, take a breath. Speak to me. There are other characters in the show. Save some words for the rest of us. Like, the anime heavily relies on the MC internal thoughts to break down the action and doesn't really try to break the trend either. And it's so heavily used at one point you'll definitely start to think about his internal monologue as maybe the goal of the show. Like, was the anime intended to show what greatness takes from the internal thinking of someone who's doing big things? Because if that's it, then it would make total sense. But then you think that and you think about the plot and it doesn't really add up, because another thing that hinders its popularity would be the lack of entertainment. Like, really trying to stay entertained with this show is like trying to find a needle in a haystack while wearing a mitten. Really, we need our HE joke and a good old-fashioned harem. It's the perfect recipe for an isekai. I mean, his love interests are thick, and we have a bunny girl too, which is fairy's heaven, but what makes it worse is the art style. It does need to take a look at Konosuba for reference. Konosuba is basically a comedy goldmine, with great touches of heady jokes, like Kazuma stealing Aqua's skin triangles with his magic, because of course that's what you do if you have magic. And Dustiness with her masochistic tendencies, it's just, these beats really make the anime cheerful and keep us in stitches, probably from laughing or just in shock. Either way, it's a wild ride. But there is always more to talk about with the Great Cleric. Even though it does feel like another run-of-the-mill isekai, lost in the crowd of more exciting and inventive anime, because it unfortunately lacks a thrilling plot and relies heavily on internal narration, much like other isekai series. While it may be inoffensive, it offers little to keep audiences entertained, missing out on the humor. I do wonder if it's destined to fade into oblivion after this single season. I mean, it does have good reviews, but we'll see.